guys, Bipolar Barbie here, and I was just having a thought while I was having a cigarette about when I used to live in Melbourne, and I had one of the worst depressive episodes that I had ever had, and it was particularly hard because I was basically living alone, despite, living with my future slash ex-husband at the time, but he worked 80 hours a week, so he was really just not at home or around. And I had moved to Melbourne to go to art school, and I was going for a little bit, but then all of a sudden I just I just stopped going because I got so depressed. And I think, you know, living alone was really bad for me at that time. But Northie was really the only thing that kept me going. And that is when I got Northie as a puppy, my beautiful baby boy. And just reflecting on it, there was really only two things that I really did during that time. And I mean, I was so depressed that I was literally just spaced out. Like, time didn't exist. I could lie in bed for days and like only move to go to the toilet. And the only reason I ever got up and the only reason I left my house despite the intense anxiety that I had was to take Northie out because he was a puppy and we lived in this like 1-bedroom apartment that was so shitty, by the way. This thing was like, it's not the worst house I've ever lived in, but like the mold and like the just broken stuff, like it was almost uninhabitable. But I spent a lot of time in the bathtub. And I was thinking about that because I was like, this would make a great short film, this particular like bathtub scene. And I remember sitting in my kind of like bath shower. I would always just sit in the floor and I would just let the water run over me. I would let the water run over me until the water ran just completely cold. And sometimes I would be so spaced out and in such a state of dissociative depression that I wouldn't even notice that the water had run cold. Or I'd like turn the water off and leave like a bath, that I had filled up and again just lie there. And I think the reason I think this would make a great short film or like video clip or something is because I would often just sit there and I would stare off into space, but my mind would be having a completely different experience. And I think switching between those two, sort of like naked in the bathtub, but then imagining yourself, having a suicide attempt or self-harming, all of those really nasty things that run through your mind when you are depressed, and what depression feels like, what the internal experience of depression is completely different to how it is externally. So externally, I would just not move, but internally there would be so much going on and kind of nothing at all at the same time. It would just be like these really depressive, these really dark movies playing in my mind, and my whole body felt like it was made of lead. I felt like I just didn't exist. And, often I would drink. Often I would just be drinking in the bathtub. Often I would just sink under the water and I would just hold my breath. And all I could think about was, I want to be dead, but even taking my own life seemed like too much effort. Like even breathing just seemed like the most amount of effort in the whole entire world. And I guess Northie really got me out of the house during that time. He really, I spent a lot of time also just walking around the streets, just contemplating my life and just not really understanding what the hell was going on and just enduring it. And I think it's really interesting the impact that people can have on you. Living alone was terrible. And I'd had major depressive episodes before that, but I'd always lived with people. So they would manage, I guess, to somehow just being there kind of shake me a little bit out of that state. And walking down the street could be an interesting experience as well. So I would walk Northie down busy Melbourne streets, and if you can envision that, you're just tuned out, you've got your hood on, your headphones kind of in, or sometimes I would realize that my headphones were in, I wasn't even listening to music, and I didn't even know. And one out of, say, every 1,000 people you would cross would smile at me. And it's just incredible the effect that a simple smile can have on a person. Like, it really is crazy. You know, looking back now, I remember this one particular point. I remember exactly where I was, exactly what street I was walking down. It was in Richmond, in Melbourne, down sort of on the corner of like Church Street and Swan Street where they crossed over. And I just passed the traffic lights and I was walking up Church Street. And all of these people were passing me at that like busy intersection. And this one guy just sort of smiled and, you know, sort of half mouthed a hey, and as they walk past. And like growing up in a small kind of town, everyone says hello to everyone. And even if you don't know someone, you know, you go down the beach or you cross someone, it's really polite just to sort of say hey and smile. But in cities, it's really not like that. And when someone would do that, I mean, it doesn't take a lot to just kind of smile at someone or just kind of acknowledge their presence. And I think when you're in such a state of depression, that small act of like kindness and reaching out, I guess, to someone, even just a stranger that you don't even know, can really shake them out of a terrible moment, even if it is only for like a minute before I realize how depressed I am again. Because a smile or a, you know, acknowledging someone is really just acknowledging their existence. And it kind of makes you feel like, wow, I'm important enough to at least one person to acknowledge my presence on this world, on this earth, on this street, you know, whatever it is that you're doing. There is someone that notices me. And whether they noticed just the depression that was written all over my face, they say mental illness is invisible, but like, hello, it's not. You know, that's what awareness is about, is learning how to recognize that in people and sort of step outside yourself and pay attention to people around you. And I think if you can do that, if we can all just sort of smile and like acknowledge people a little bit more, you have no idea when it could actually save someone's life. You have no idea when, you know, a small hey, you know, at a train station or talking, you know, about someone's dog. Oh, I like your dog. And just starting a really small conversation with a complete stranger can actually change someone's life. The amount of times I would be sitting at a train station just waiting for the train for I don't know, minutes or hours, however long it was. And I would be sitting there thinking, I wonder if I should just jump in front of this train. Like, and someone, on a number of occasions, you know, would smile or kind of make me laugh. And I think even if you can laugh, it doesn't mean that you're sort of not depressed anymore. It's kind of, I mean, when you're at that severity of depression, though, it is really hard to muster any form of smile. And sometimes anything that kind of makes you go, oh, I would normally smile at that, but I'm so depressed, so I can't actually smile about anything. That even makes you feel worse sometimes because, you know, it's just reminding you how bad you really are. And you do feel like you are worthless because there is no one that acknowledges you. There was no one that knew what I was going through. There was no one that cared. And when I withdrew for so long, when I didn't call people, people just thought, she's busy, I guess. She's doing other things. I mean, I guess it's sadder there were people that knew and still didn't kind of check up. But yeah, that's the impact that a friendly smile can have on someone. And I also know the impact that not having a friendly smile can have on someone. After a man I checked into a hotel ended up jumping off the building 5 minutes later. And I was so depressed at the time that I could not be my normal perky self. And on other occasions, I had seen that people weren't themselves, and I saw that this guy wasn't, upbeat. He was really depressed, and I knew that. But I was just in such a bad mental state and so self-absorbed in my own depression that I couldn't do anything about it. And that's something that you will never get out of your head. And I try not to dwell on it, but there is always that nagging thing in the back of your mind that's like, what if I had done something different? What if I had done what I normally would do? And I think to make it even worse, a little while later, someone had actually come back down to the desk and said to me, you know what? I was thinking of doing something really stupid, but you just brightened my day. And, I just want to thank you. You might have just saved my life. And to know that you really can have that impact on someone, and, it does just make it harder. So I just wish we could love everyone a little bit more. I wish we could spread a simple smile, because you never know when you could save a life. You never know when starting a conversation. And personally, I don't think there's anything wrong if you see someone that looks depressed as hell, whether it be at a train station, whether it be like waiting in line. I don't think there's anything wrong with asking the question, hey, you okay? I mean, I think a lot of the time people would be like, oh, yeah, I'm fine. Or, they might say that anyway, but just being noticed by someone is sometimes all it really takes. So, thank you for my video, guys. If you like it, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And, I don't know, let me know what other videos you want me to do stuff on. There's a lot in my head. It's really scrambled at the moment, so I'm just trying to, put it into topics so I just don't end up on, pointless rants. Oh, but if you like pointless rants, then definitely follow my channel, because there's a lot of them. So, thanks, guys. I really hope you're doing okay. And if you're not, tell somebody.